Enshrouded is an open world survival game where your aim is to awaken lost survivors to help you in your journey of reclaiming the land from the Shroud. So please follow me in my journey as I attempt to do so. My journey began as I climbed out of this capsule, went into the world and entered through this door into the room called the Cinder Vault, where the light projected itself towards this flame which began communicating with me, suggesting that I should find a place to base and use the flame altar to help protect myself. I entered the world and immediately ran into a cave, which gave me a torch to help find my way through. In the cave I fell into the Enshrouded, a cloudy layer which holds hostiles which weren't too difficult to take out. I left through the cave and bumped into one of these beacons, which would act as a respawn point should I die, and now began my journey into this world. I found this abandoned campsite which had a couple skeletons resting in it. In one of the tents there was a journal, which gave me a level up and I was able to upgrade one of my skills, so I chose the merciless attack, as that should help me kill things. I searched around the camp a bit more and saw something die over in the distance. Upon checking it out I saw a giant rat, but I was able to quickly kill it. I found a chest with some more arrows in it and then killed a sheep and then a wolf. I followed the objective from my journal to this flat land and build a flame altar to place down, and now I could get a first look at the building mechanics, and it looked really good. Having a camera view like this will surely help when it comes to building my very first base. Once I placed it, I explored this tent which had a bed inside, so of course I laid in it. In the other tent was another journal. Also next to it was this bridge, which did look a little broken, and I did require a grappling hook to be able to get over it. Next to the bridge was a path down into the Enshrouded, but it didn't seem the most safe with this dead body right at the entrance, so I ignored it and went into it anyway, and into this cave and up this wall and onto the other side of the valley. I was then shot at by something on the bridge, and on closer inspection I saw a hostile with a crossbow, which made it quite an easy kill. However, I was hoping for the crossbow as loot, but that didn't happen. I ran into this area with a couple more hostiles, but was able to conceal myself in a bush. That wouldn't get rid of them though, so I had to fight them. The first one went down rather easily, and so did the second, but it was this red barrel that defeated me. Dude, what? So I then had to re-enter the Enshrouded, climb up the other side and collect my things, and now I was able to enter this building which had the survivor which I needed to awaken, but it did have another hostile in front of it. So let's take that out first.
What again?
I recollected my things and then went in for round 2, and this time I was successful and was able to wake up the blacksmith from the capsule, which I also jumped out from at the very beginning. Also inside I found a locked chest which I was able to open and get an executioner's axe. With that done, I went back to base and summoned in my new friend using the summoning staff. My new friend was the blacksmith, which meant I could make forges and kilns and all of that sort of stuff. Soon later it was night time and these friendly looking guys rolled in, so of course I had to take care of them. I realised if hostiles were going to start attacking me, it was probably best to have some sort of base to help hide in. So I began knocking down as many trees as possible to collect all the wood to be able to start building something. But I did end up getting a little distracted by the fur hood that I decided to craft and equipped. As the sun rose, I decided to go on a little adventure into the nearby ruin to see what I could find, like these scrap arrows on this archery board. I then got back on track with making the base by crafting some rough wood blocks needed and began placing them down. However, they were kinda small and I was going to need a lot of them, but then I realised that wouldn't be necessary as I just needed to enter the building mode, which gave me many more different sorts of structures to build with. I was able to delete those small blocks I'd already placed and get back all my materials, which I thought was pretty neat. A second bonus for my base was that the blacksmith was needing a little shop to be able to do his stuff, and my base would serve as that. I needed a little bit more wood to finish the build and was now able to start placing the walls and door frames, and I can't lie, its building is super neat. With all the different types of structures that it gives you and the way you're able to place them and combine them, like having the walls all super connected, is super cool. It definitely helps someone like me who isn't a very good builder at all. With all the materials I had used, I decided to move on from my little base for now and take on my next challenge, entering the elixir wheel in the Enshrouded. But little did I know this was going to be tough, as it was absolutely littered with hostiles around it, and things only got worse for me from here on, as I fell to my death trying to escape them. I spawned at base and climbed down the cliff, almost killing myself whilst trying to get back into the well. I first had to kill a few guards outside, which didn't go too well, as one killed me. I returned and took out the remaining guards and entered the well into the unknown. I didn't have too much of an idea what I was supposed to be doing down here, but I did see this big red glowing living tree looking thing, and then was attacked by something called a felled thunderbrute, who killed me with just one hit. And as it turned out, this was some sort of boss, a dangerous one. I spawned and hopped back down the well to see the thunderbrute had healed and then killed me in one hit again. I managed to dodge the first couple of attacks, but could not work out how to survive this attack, which killed me again. I then fell into a cycle of repeated deaths and then got stuck outside as the guards kept killing me. Realising I clearly wasn't prepared enough for this, I left the Enshrouded and went back to base. Having returned to base, I spent some time farming up trees for materials before I went back down into the Enshrouded for round 2. The guards had returned, but I decided to run past them this time so I could put my full attention on the felled thunderbrute. I ran down the spiraling stairs and came face to face with it. Having dodged its first attack, I went in and hit it myself, but missed, which cost me as it killed me. Having retrieved my stuff, I dragged it out to see if there was a better place to fight it. I then died to one of these bugs, and then a second time. I clearly was doing something wrong, so I looked online and saw that a bow and arrow might be helpful, as I could keep range and avoid its attacks. I didn't quite have the materials for one just yet, and I still need to go down the well to retrieve my items. I then had to kill the guards, which was easier said than done, as I ran with little health left, and then died, and then again. Turns out those little critters can be quite strong. I died a few more times whilst trying to get out. I was finally able to kill the main guard, but then died to another bug. But finally I was able to leave the Enshrouded and return to base. At base I saw what I needed to make a bow, twigs and strings. I made the strings using plant fibres and crafted the bow, making arrows out of the remaining twigs I had. With the bow ready, I decided to cook myself some raw wolf meat at the campfire to help me get ready for the big boss fight. In the midst of the night I descended down into the Enshrouded and fell off a cliff and died. Realising my stuff was now effectively unretrievable, thankfully Enshrouded does let you keep some of the main items upon each death, and with that I headed down into the well. I spotted my enemy and began shooting at it. I got it low and it ran away, only to see then its health had fully healed. With no arrows left, I had to fight with my melee weapons, only to die again. In need of more arrows, I went out to farm bushes to get twigs and I was able to make 30 arrows, but I did think I was going to need more. So I went around farming as many bushes as I could find and managed to make 70 more arrows, taking my total up to 100, which should be enough I think. I looked at my storage and noticed I had actually gotten this shield, but I had no clue where I got it from. But I reckon it might come in handy. With everything now ready, it was time to head down and take out this thunderbrute once and for all. I arrived and began the onslaught of arrows. Once it was low, it managed to heal again, and I was super perplexed as to why this kept happening. I then guessed that maybe the red glowing tree could have something to do with it. So whilst it was distracted, I was able to walk over and chop the big red tree down, hoping it would be the final piece of the puzzle that would finally allow me to defeat the fell thunderbrute. And it was, as I was able to defeat it with some more arrows, and it was down. I claimed its head as a trophy and unlocked a bronze sword in the loot as well. I climbed my way out of the well and noticed that defeating the thunderbrute had removed the enshrouded fog from this location, but I still had to enter some more to get back to base. I made it out and returned back to base to store my new goods, but I did need some more storage for it, which would require some more strings and twigs. So I went out to get them and returned and made the storage box. My next objective was to make something called the flame altar and base improvements, so I headed out towards it. It took me towards this wooden structure area which I think I had to pass through, however it didn't seem I was going to be able to as I required a grapple to get across. It did have a chest too with some arrows in, which was cool, so I was forced to travel into the Enshrouded to get by, but wasn't in for too long. My trek made me stumble into this camp which had some wolves right outside, forcing me into battle again, and one that I would not win as my health was low and I was dealt a final blow. That death had removed all my progress as I spawned back at base and had to walk 200 meters to go get my stuff. So off I went into the Enshrouded to return where I just died. Got to my body, the wolves seemed to have either left or been killed by the camp members, which was good news for me as I could explore the camp, only to find it was still occupied. I was able to kill the camp member fairly easily as I was starting to learn the combat and began looting, but there wasn't too much here to be looted, so I quickly left. I continued my journey towards the Flame Sanctum, where a couple bats were waiting for me, but I decided to ignore this and opened the door and entered the building to see a beacon glow up as I collected the spark from this flame altar. I brought it back to base and it turned out that I needed other materials to be able to upgrade the altar. I was a little short on the Shroud liquid, red mushrooms and resin that I needed. So I went out to farm the red mushrooms and then went into the Enshrouded to gather these interesting looking plants which gave Shrouded liquid. I now just needed resin which you would randomly get from trees, and not this one though, or this one, and the third wasn't lucky either. I finally got 2 from one tree and was able to upgrade my flame to level 2. I also noticed that I could upgrade my altar and increase the building area, but I needed a Shroud core, which I happened to got when I defeated the Fell Thunder Brute, so actually I could upgrade it right now. With those upgrades done, I decided to upgrade my base by making it even bigger. And I may have said this before, but the building on this game is really great. The different types of shapes that you can place and how they seamlessly all fit together makes customization endless. However, you do also need to be creative, and that's not really me, so I'll just stick with a simple base for now. I wasn't actually able to finish the build as I ran out of fibre roofs, so I had to go out and get some more fibre for it. However, I had kind of decimated all the bushes in the local area, so I'd have to venture out a bit further. So far in fact that I had to re-enter the Enshrouded and cross over it to the other side of the valley, where there were plenty of more bushes waiting for me. Once I collected enough, I hopped back into the Enshrouded and back to base to finish the build, and I never even build houses when I play games, so the fact that I've actually been able to build something resembling a normal house goes to show how easy the building is in this game. My next objective was to build and place a second flame altar, which is easy enough as I crafted one myself. I also realised I was probably close to being able to make the grapple hooks, and I was just needing string, which was easy enough to get. I now had just built a larger home, but I do have plans on attempting to build something even better. In fact, I decided to spend some time now chopping down trees to get materials for it. I did also get stone, as a build made out of just wood is pretty boring. I got back to base after a long time of farming metals and began to destroy everything. And it's a great feature that you can actually destroy your buildings and it gives you all of your materials back, which is just such a good idea, as it allows you to rebuild if you don't like your base. I just think that's a feature that other games should implement. Once I stripped my building down to just the foundations, I then removed them as well, so I could replace them with the stone foundations to give the base a stronger look. I did run out of stone, so I needed to run to the nearby stone rocks to farm myself up some more before beginning to place the walls, which some had some windows in. I wanted this build to have 2 floors, so I began separating the first floor from the second with some wooden ceilings. I finished the layer by adding some smaller blocks around the stairs for a cool effect, and now I just needed to work on the roof. However, I ran out of materials whilst building it, so I had to go out on another adventure to get more fibre. I collected some more fibre and then began my journey back across the bridge back to home, as I now had the grapple and didn't need to go into the Enshrouded. However, the grapple only seemed to be a one-way thing. Unless I could maybe jump from this area as I was higher than the other section, well, that's a no. Thankfully I reacted quickly though. I tried to see if I could jump off to the side, but I couldn't. I then fell again whilst trying to retrieve my things. I played it safe this time and walked down, however I couldn't actually find the corpse, which was a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. So I had to go out and find some fibre as I had lost all of mine in those depths. Whilst out I stumbled into the camp where I got the blacksmith from earlier, and there were a couple hostiles back there, which I could then take out to get some metal scraps. I got the scraps but got distracted with another mission instead of returning back to base. This mission took me out into the Enshrouded and into this camp where I had to kill some wolves which were patrolling the area. There were also a couple hostiles inside which I was able to take down as well. I didn't find too much loot in this camp other than some bushes which I still needed to finish off my roof, so I continued on my journey down into the Enshrouded until I ran into this guy, who killed me. Which meant I now had a pretty long run from base to go get my stuff. The camp did have its hostiles respawn, but other than that I had no issues getting back my stuff and continuing my journey. I ran into another ruin where there were a bunch of critters which can be dangerous in big groups, but not if your sword is good enough. I got out the ruin and continued until I finally reached my objective, reaching this obelisk looking structure where there was this skeleton with some boots for me. I read the writings on the structure and this was the quest complete, and with that simple quest over I now had the fun job of running all the way back to base, which thankfully was a quiet, peaceful trip. I returned back to base and began working on the footpath leading up to the front door, and thankfully for me the building features helped me do this, as there is an option to place terrain structures which helps you redecorate the landscape around you, and this is absolutely perfect for what I had in mind. But I did need to go out and get some more stone to do so. The end result was this, and it was exactly what I wanted. I then finished up the roof and was able to stand back and admire my build. I really don't ever build in any game, so it was quite nice to sit back and look at something that actually resembled a house for once. I placed the final touches of a door and it was done. I then used my blacksmith to craft a forge, as I had been collecting enough scrap metal for it, and placed it down next to my workstation. My next quest would take me to a place called the Ancient Spires, and it was fairly far away. But on the bridge on the way I spotted one of my old corpses with a bunch of loot inside, which was a nice surprise. On my way I ran into this small camp which had a couple guards who were easy to take out, and not too long later I was at the base of a giant building which I think I had to climb. Inside I had to use this glowing platform to teleport myself up the building, where I had to open up a door using one of these buttons and then swing myself across this grab using the grappling hook. I then used the grapple some more, jumping over some more lava, and used the bow and arrow to shoot this button and to open a door with a chest with some more melee weapons inside. This next section had spikes which would come out the ground, but they weren't the most difficult to get past. But the challenge was I couldn't exactly see how far I had to go. Luckily I was able to jump into this small section to escape them and continued on past the spikes. Once I had finished the spike area I then jumped over some more lava before ascending up to the top, where I was able to commune with this flame and unlocked myself a fast travel point, which is super handy. At the top I was able to look out over the map and it was stunning. But then I jumped off, as I had actually crafted myself a glider before leaving, which made travel so much quicker, as I was already heading to my next quest, which was a little bit away. On my way I found this cool little house, but inside was this rather unfriendly green spider, so I quickly left and went on my ways. But it wasn't too long until I ran into something else. Another massive camp, but this one wasn't a normal one either, as it didn't have human-like creatures, but more some kind of beast which patrolled it. But they weren't the most difficult creature to take out. I took out the final creature with this cool paint job on it, and then entered into the main building, despite it not being part of the quest. Inside there were these shooting orbs which I had to get past with some well-timed jumps. I then had to swing across the lava and found this room with a capsule in, which actually had the hunter survivor in. I could have returned back to base and summoned in the hunter I just woken, but I decided to continue on to another quest, as I was kind of far away from base. I probably should have returned to base though, as I walked into a group of high level wolves who killed me. Lucky for me the respawn point wasn't too far away, so getting my things back wasn't a massive journey. I continued onwards towards the quest location until I accidentally fell off a cliff and died again. When I got back I noticed I'd actually just found a chest above some lava, so I had to jump down and loot it. Inside was an insane bow, and I was absolutely loving the bow so far, so this was a thoroughly enjoyed upgrade. I eventually reached the end of the quest, which was another obelisk. I didn't really fancy walking all the way back, so I fast travelled to the closest spire nearest the next quest. It took me into the mountains, and then I thought into this cave, but it turned out I was wrong, so I had to head back. The quest was to this camp, which I had actually been to before, and into this unopened mineshaft which I must have missed from earlier. I had to open it using some of these explosives, which exposed a chest which had the shepherd's staff inside. I wanted to try out my new start on this guy that I saw, however things went a little bit wrong. I fast travelled back to base as this was the closest spawn, and then headed out to go get my things. I returned and found that explosion had actually exposed a chest which had this inside, which actually did more damage than any of my other weapons. Back at base I was able to summon in the hunter survivor who I had awoken in the quest earlier. Having realised there were more unwoken survivors out there, I wanted to go find one, and I wanted to find the alchemist. I was a little far away though, as it was just over 1000 meters. It was a fairly uneventful walk getting over there, apart from being chased out the Enshrouded by some bugs. I soon reached the location, which was another temple, but it was inhabited by some bad guys who needed taken care of first. Once inside, I was greeted with some more hostiles which I needed to kill. I entered the final room and made sure to keep quiet so I could sneak up on these two final guards and take them out, both using the sneak attack, which does 10 times more damage, and it allows me to kill them both with one hit with my sword. I then awoke the alchemist survivor from his pod. My target was to collect the farmer as well, who was another 800 meters away. On my way I found another one of those red trees, similar to the fell thunder root that I fought all that time ago. This appeared to have some sort of boss flying towards me from it, but it was fairly slow and was easily killed. I tried to destroy the tree like last time, but failed just like last time as well, as I was killed by an arrow from a guard. I quickly flew back and took out the remaining hostiles using some explosive grenades that I had been finding, and then took my stuff and continued on my travels. I arrived at the next temple and walked inside, and this one was much different to any others. The floor was filled with lava, and it didn't seem to have the clearest route. Also, the door where I could see the sleeping lost survivor was locked, which meant I needed to go and find 3 buttons to unlock it. I found the route by grappling over to the side, and then had to jump over some lava and climb up this wall to pass through. The next room had once again the lightning orbs which flew across the ground, but I was able to get past these without incident. Next I used 2 grapples to swing over some more lava, and then climbed up to the top of the building, ran over some more spikes, but got caught and found myself another bow in this chest. Still no button for the main door. I decided to trace my steps back, as clearly I had missed them. I brought myself right back to the beginning and decided to give it all another go. As I went through, I got caught by the lightning and died, but I had actually just spotted the first button, which was in plain sight. The second was as well, and now I just needed to find the third and final button. And it turns out the third was in plain sight as well. It was at the top past all the spikes. So with all 3 pushed, the door was finally open and I could awaken the farmer. I fast travelled back to base and summoned in my new 2 friends, the farmer and alchemist. As the name suggests, the alchemist could craft more chemistry sort of things, and the farmer could make crops and food. I did use the alchemist to upgrade my sword and bow by giving him more damage in certain situations, like from the back. I also wanted to make a couple of the magic chests which needed some more materials. One which was located down in the Enshrouded was from one of these funny looking plants, which gave Shroud liquid. I was able to make one, but I wanted more, and needed more of the smaller chests which required nails, which I was able to make plenty of using the blacksmith. I ended up being able to make 2 of them, and I can't lie, they do look really cool. But with that done, I wanted to start my next quest, and fast travel to the west side of the map, as I needed to go to a place called Westcott. It was still 800 meters away even after fast travel, but luckily for me I did have my glider, which helped quicken the process. I reached Westcott by night time and killed a couple guards outside who were level 9. I searched this house and found a chest which gave me a mace, but I was here to find a hand spindle for the hunter, but it turned out that it wasn't actually here. So as I went out to find the correct location, I ran into this level 9 beast who killed me. I tried to get my things back, but died again, and I was unable to fight with my bow as I had run out of arrows, and I'm not the strongest at melee fighting on this game. So this time I went to farm some bushes for twigs to make arrows. This time I actually killed them with the bow and arrow and was finally able to retrieve my things. As I searched for this other camp, I found this plant that was shooting stuff at me, so I killed it with a bow from a distance. But as it turned out, there were a couple more there as well. I fought one of those, the other one exploded itself on me, killing itself and me. I found the hidden camp a little bit further away and got a nice bow from this chest and the handle spindle. But I didn't, as it turned out to be somewhere else again, and it turned out to be quite far away this time. So we have a little run to go on. On the way I found this place called Willow's Crush and fell for a trap in the entrance, and then another one, but thankfully missed the third. This place had some quite bad looking people in it, so I decided to keep quiet and sneak my way around. But I needed to get on this bridge to pass over the newly discovered deadly shroud, which destroys your shroud timer and you really don't want to be messing with it. But unfortunately I got stuck in it and succumbed to it. and this set me back a fair bit as I now had to run 400 meters to go get my stuff. I managed to get my things but suffered the same fate again. I realised I needed to dig a little ramp out, and it worked as I got my things and managed to get out safely. I now needed to get back on the bridge, and the only way to do that was by going through the camp. So I took up a vantage point and began killing the members. Whilst healing in this fight, I got shot from behind and then killed, and now had to walk the 400 meters again. I killed the remaining mobs and made it onto the bridge and crossed the deadly shroud, only to then die to some level 13 rat on the other side. And it's time for another 400 meter run. When I returned, the rat had run away, so I was able to continue my journey until I ran into a level 13 hog, which was an absolute unit. Lucky for me, I was close to a respawn point and was able to continue my journey, but maybe a bit too close. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it, as it killed me again. I finally got past it and found the location, which was a cave, and it had some spider webbing at the front. That can never be a good sign. Inside were some more green spiders who weren't too difficult to get rid of, but further inside was a massive chamber, which of course housed a bunch more spiders, and too many of them as I died. Which meant I now had a 600 meter run back to the cave, and this time it wasn't too smooth. It was night time, and for the first time this game had almost become a horror game, as random things which I'd never seen before were lurking in the near distance, as I ran into some mobs that I had seen before, but further up was trouble as it looked like a roaming group of hostiles and I wanted nothing to do with them. So I hid my torch and creeped past quietly. But my route led directly to something that was level 13 get absolutely shredded in front of me, and I didn't want to meet whatever had just done that. Thankfully I was able to get past them all and back into the cave though, where I started to pick off the spiders one by one with a bow. But once again, there were still too many as I died to this weird attack that kept poisoning me even though I wasn't actually being hit. On the run back, I was able to avoid that group from earlier who had seemingly left the area and returned to the cave, and picked off the remaining spiders before being able to pick up the handle spindle for the hunter back at base. I then fast travelled back to base as I really didn't fancy dying in the area as it was super dangerous. At base I placed down the new handle spindle for the hunter and then finally completed the quest. That quest done, I started my next one as I fast travelled to another ancient spire. This quest was to claim another ancient spire in the Revelwood, which was quite far away, and it being further away meant it was most likely going to be more difficult as I died to another high level hog. So I then had to glide all the way back until I ran out of stamina and quite literally fell out of the sky and died. Possibly my most embarrassing death of the video. This time I tried to time it so I landed before my stamina depleted, but I didn't. I fell and died again. On the third try I actually landed and was able to begin my trek. I made it into the Willow's Crush area again and tried to see if I could glide over the deadly shroud, but that was not going to happen. So instead I found a bridge that I could cross, but it had a wolf on it that killed me instantly. When I returned it was night time and kind of hard to see, but I still had to kill the creatures on the bridge, but once again I was defeated. This time I tried to do as much damage as possible with my bow from a distance, and it worked as I was able to defeat the first guard and then two more who were further in on the bridge. But unfortunately there was another wolf who got me. Once back again I took out the remaining wolves and guards and was finally at last able to cross the bridge and continued with my journey towards the quest as I could now see the building that I would need to enter. But I couldn't exactly find the entrance as I ran into a dead end and on the other side were steep cliffs. As I attempted to scale the cliffs, I was slain by some bats. When I got back, I saw there was a possible route. I would need to go all the way around, and as it turned out, this was the actual route, as I found the steps leading towards the entrance. Inside there wasn't much other than a place where I had to teleport up to get further into the building. My first task was to get past these balls of rolling lava, which would require precision and speed, as I hopped into the middle lane and ran down and jumped out at this exit. But it was the wrong exit, so now I had to re-enter the balls of lava to get to the actual exit. With this first task done, I was able to press this button which opened the door to the next section. It led me to a door which needed to press another button to open, and this turned out to be behind the zaps of lighting and then past these balls of rolling lava again as I was able to press the second button. This took me to another place where I had to teleport up and into a room where there were a bunch of spikes and another door, which required 4 buttons this time. The first button I found was slightly off the ground, so I had to use my bow and arrow to get to it. Next, I didn't find a button, but a chest with some weird wizard pants inside, which were an upgrade on my current pair. One of the roots forced me to grapple up as I found the second button, and as I searched for the third, I mistimed a jump and landed in some spikes, killing me. Thankfully though, the respawn point was at the beginning of the room, as I then found the third button, which was in plain sight, and I'd somehow just missed it. For some reason, I could not find the fourth button, so I sat down to look online to help me, and it turns out I had just missed it as it was obvious. Behind the door, I teleported up again into another room where I had to hit 2 more buttons, which were both rather simple to get. The end was starting to be in sight as I climbed some stairs, shot some more buttons, and ascended to the top of the building, where I was able to commune with the flame and complete the quest. I fast travelled back to base and set off again to find the carpenter, another one of the lost survivors. I ran into another one of the flying bosses, but they were quite easy to get rid of. I tried to destroy the special tree but died to those protecting it. Back at base, I made as many arrows as possible for one last mission, and set off again to find the carpenter. This time I ignored that tree and glided down, only to land in the deadly shroud, and killed myself. On the third attempt, I took the long way around and ended up in the carpenter's camp. However, he was not here. Instead, he happened to be in this building, which was in the Enshrouded, and that would make it just a bit more difficult to search. This time, I decided to attempt this quest with a different method. I would just ignore all the hostiles in it, and kept running. I reached this glowing light and was able to reset my Enshrouded timer and continued with the job. I ran into a stone wall which I figured I would need to break as this was the only route. And it was, as behind was a hidden room with someone inside. This someone was the flying mini boss again, who I'd fought a couple times already. So I danced around the room avoiding its attack and shooting it with my bow, and thankfully I had fought this guy twice already, so I kind of knew how to defeat him. And once he was down, I was able to rescue the carpenter. I quickly fast travelled back to base and let the carpenter join the rest of my friends, and with that, I'm going to end this video here. It's been an absolute pleasure playing Enshrouded, and I cannot thank Keen Games enough for allowing me to play their special game. I cannot recommend this game more if you enjoy a fantasy open world survival game, as it has so many good features, none more so than the building itself, and I cannot rate that highly enough. I mean, I was actually able to use it and make a normal looking base. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.